Ladies and gentlemen, welcome to another episode of the Take Your Shot podcast. Of course, as always, I'm your wonderful host, Joshua Gitman, and it is finally, after a long 82 games, the end to the regular season, and we can start the real season, the postseason, and we've got a jam-packed show for you. But first, special announcement, if you didn't hear, we are starting to do 3 episodes a week for the postseason. That's right, 3 episodes, Mondays, Wednesdays, and Fridays at 5 p.m. Eastern Time, exclusively on Spotify and YouTube. So very exciting stuff for the postseason. We will be doing that until the final game of the NBA Finals. Then for the offseason, we will go back to 1 episode a week on Fridays at 5 p.m. Eastern. But for now, it's 3 episodes a week until then, because it, as I said, is playoff time, and we've got exciting action ahead. But let me give you the rundown for this week. Today, we are going to be previewing the Western Conference playing games plus the Western Conference playoff series. We already know. Wednesday, we are going to be previewing the Eastern Conference play-in plus the Eastern Conference playoff series. We already know. Friday, we are going to be previewing the final playing games, which is the loser of the 7 and 8 hosting the winner of the 9 and 10 in both conferences. Plus, we'll preview the 2 and 7 series in both conferences because we will know the 7 seed in both conferences by Friday. And finally, we'll sparkle a little bit of the 1 seeds in there. Shout out to Boston in the East and OKC in the West for getting those 1 seeds, because we will not be able to preview their playoff series as game 1s start Saturday and Sunday. But I want to get right into it to the West. Let's first start with previewing our playing games. Then we'll get to the playoff series a little bit later in the episode. But let's start with the 10 and 9 game winner go home game for both of these teams, where the number 10 seed Warriors will be going to Sacramento in what is a first round playoff series rematch from last season in a playing game that is win or go home. Remember, the Warriors did go into Sacramento last year and beat them in a critical game 7. Winner take all then, and it is the same situation now, just in the play-in series. And this series has been absolutely tight for the past season. Obviously, last year it went to a 7-game series. In the regular season, both teams split. They both won 2 games, 1 at home, 1 on the road, and 3 of those games were 1-point games. They were all close. They were all exciting. And on October 27th, the Warriors won 122-114 in Sacramento. On November 1st, the Warriors won 102-101 in Golden State. On November 28th, the Kings won 124-123 in Sacramento. And on January 25th, the Kings won 134-133 in Golden State. You can just see by the regular season how good this game will be, how good this matchup will be, because this matchup last year was an absolute classic. It's been this season, and in a winner-go-home game, we expect nothing less. So let's start with the Kings. The Kings have had a pretty solid season, but at the end of the season, they lost some very important, crucial games to the Pelicans and the Suns. And while that was happening, the Lakers were starting to win games, so the Kings dropped to the 9 seed. The Kings were pretty much in that 7-8 game for most of the season, but with those 2 critical losses and with the Lakers starting to get on a heater and starting to win consistently, the Kings ended up dropping to 9 and will have to win 2 games now in order to make the playoffs. Obviously, this season, Domantas Sabonis, incredible season, led the league in rebounds, double-doubles, and triple-doubles. He has had an historic season for himself and for the Sacramento Kings, and he is one of the reasons why the Sacramento Kings teams are at least the 9 seed and not in a disastrous situation this season. Also, Sabonis had an incredible season overall, as I said, but one thing to remember for the Sacramento Kings team is swiper, no swiping, De'Aaron Fox. He is an absolute maniac on the offensive side of the ball. He is the fastest guard, in my opinion, with Tyrese Maxey in the NBA. He averaged 26 points per game this year. We expected him and this team to make another jump. Obviously, they did not. They fell back, even though the West is a little more stacked, and we've got to give them some leeway. They did have a over-expected season in the 22-23 season. We didn't expect them to be the 7, but again, the West is absolutely crazy this year. So, I mean, not the 7, the 9, but the West is absolutely crazy this year. And honestly, it's just ridiculous that the Kings are the 9 seed, considering how solid their season looked. Yet here we are in the Wild Wild West. And remember, for the Sacramento Kings team going into this game, Malik Monk and Kevin Huerter are out for the season. So, of course, they will not be playing in this game for the Sacramento Kings. And in the season, we know that the Kings, not even just this season, but multiple seasons, their Achilles heel has been on the defensive side of the ball. They are giving up the most free throws a game at 23, and they are giving up a very high percentage from the three-point line, which is 38%. So the defense is definitely a concern for the Sacramento Kings going into this game, considering you have to play an elite point guard and a team that can score the three-point shot clearly with the Splash Brothers and Curry and Thompson and others on the court. When you give up that big of a three-point percentage, that will definitely be a concern going into a game like this one. And, of course, as I said, Monk and Huerter, they're big losses. And considering how Chris Duarte and Davion Mitchell have played for the Sacramento team, it just even shows how big of a loss those two guys are for this team. Those two guys could score the ball at an elite level, especially Malik Monk, who probably will be the sixth man of the year. Even though he will be out for the rest of the season, we still consider him the sixth man of the year because that's how good of a season he is. And Kevin Huerter is a shooter and can score 5 3-pointers, 6 3-pointers, 30 points a game on any given night. So those two losses are going to be huge for Sacramento in this one, considering that Chris Duarte and Davion Mitchell have not matched their offensive efficiency. And for Golden State, we know what kind of a crazy year they've had this season. We know the Klay Thompson up and downs, Steve Kerr having to move Klay Thompson to the bench, Klay Thompson having to adjust to this new role. But then eventually things started to not fall for the Warriors, and they had to make another adjustment, and they put Klay Thompson back in the starting lineup, and he hasn't played half that bad in this finishing stretch of the regular season. So Klay Thompson is back in the starting lineup. Wiggins has had personal issues all year, and he's arguably had the worst season of his career, coming off from 2 years ago when he looked like the second best player on the Warriors 2022 title team. He's had personal issues for the last 2 seasons, and he has looked at the worst of his career. So for Andrew Wiggins, I hope everything's okay, but he has just not been playing up to par for the Golden State Warriors this season. Also, the rookies for Golden State, Podziemski, Trayce Jackson-Davis, they were performing their standards this season. Podziemski with the 19th pick, absolutely an incredible steal for them. Started a lot of the season for them. A decent guard off the bench who can score and attack the basket and shoot it when you want him to. And Trayce Jackson-Davis, a great center for the Warriors off the bench. Good rebounding, good spacing, especially when Draymond is out of the game. Trayce Jackson-Davis has played solid for that Golden State team. And then, of course, you've got Jonathan Kuminga, who is having the season of his career for the Golden State Warriors. Jonathan Kuminga has elevated his game to look arguably like the second best player for this Golden State Warriors team for most of the season, especially considering Klay's up and downs, Draymond's suspensions. He's looked like that second best player, and he's taken a jump for this Warriors team. And we were expecting that jump a little bit sooner, but he took it, and he's been playing amazing for them. And when you look at this matchup here, obviously we know that both teams can score. So the key for this matchup is the defense. These teams need to find ways to get stops on these elite offensive teams. For the Kings, the question is, if you're De'Aaron Fox, you're going to have to be guarding Steph Curry. If you're Mike Brown, are you going to put Fox on Curry? Because Fox is a huge piece in this Kings offense, especially now since Huerter and Malik Monk are out. He's going to be even a bigger part of this Kings offense. As I said, Duarte and Davion Mitchell aren't doing it. So can Fox really carry all that load? Because that was a problem and a concern in last year's playoffs. Fox had to guard Curry and be that offensive guy, and he really looked like he ran out of gas by the time it was Game 7. Obviously, this is different circumstances, and it's a one-game winner-go-home. But then you've got to go 2 days later, 3 days later, and play another winner-go-home game. So you have to be smart and strategic here if you're Sacramento. Do you want to run Fox on Curry while carrying most of the load on offense? Because Curry, all he does is run around the court. You are not getting a break. Curry goes at 100% speed 100% of the time, and he's probably by far one of the hardest players, if not the hardest player to guard in the NBA. So the question is, if you're Sacramento, Who else is going to guard Curry? Are you going to put the youngster in Davion Mitchell and Curry? That's a possibility. Could you alternate between Fox and Curry? That's also a possibility. There's a lot of possibilities here for Mike Brown and the Sacramento Kings team, but he's going to have to figure that out. Also, can the Kings, another key for the Sacramento Kings, once Draymond Green gets the ball at the top of the free throw line and he attacks, so we know that Sabonis is not a good defender. So if Green is attacking the basket and Sabonis has to get help from somebody else, the Warriors can kick it out to the corners, get easy three-point shots, especially if they double Curry up top, hand to Green, and Sabonis and help defense collapse. They can get an easy three at the corners. But if Sabonis backs up, Draymond Green gets his little one-leg floater, and he scores that way. And we know Sabonis is not a good defender, so you're going to have to find ways to stop Draymond from getting the ball at the free throw line extended, because if he does that, the Kings are screwed, because when you go down the paint with Draymond, it's essentially a 3-on-2 fast break with the help defense on Draymond. So the Kings' number one priority is to make sure Draymond does not get to that free throw line, because if he does, most of the time, it's pretty much wraps for the other team on that defensive possession. They're going to have to find a way to stop Draymond from doing that. And part of the issue is that Curry gets double teamed on the screens because he's that big of a shooter. So maybe if you alternate defense with Fox, with Davion Mitchell on Curry, maybe you don't have to necessarily double all the time. But if you don't double Curry, Curry can easily get off his three-point shot. That's the decision you're going to have to make if you're Sacramento, and they're going to have to figure out that defensive scheme against Steph and against Draymond, because if they double Steph, they cannot double Steph. I watched this on JJ Redick's podcast with LeBron Mind the Game. If you double Steph, Draymond gets the ball, it's an easy shot for the Golden State Warriors, whether that's Draymond taking his floater or the three-point shots. So the Kings are going to have to do something there. And for the Warriors, the question is, can Draymond, with his size, Sabonis obviously has a height advantage, can he shut down Draymond, Domantas Sabonis? It's a tough assignment, obviously, because Sabonis is a great scorer. He causes a lot of fouls, and obviously he has the height advantage over Draymond. And that could be an issue if Draymond gets into foul trouble, because I believe if Sabonis draws too early fouls on Draymond, I think this game could go in a way different direction than I think it's going to go. As you're seeing, I'm leaning toward my pick. I think it could go a different direction if Draymond gets into foul trouble. And so Draymond has to be disciplined and cannot foul Sabonis. If Sabonis gets couple easy laps, so be it. But Draymond has to understand that he is an essential part to this Warriors offense. And if Draymond is not in the game, whether that's guarding Sabonis or on the offensive side of the ball, this Warriors team will lose this game, and I can guarantee that. So Draymond has to stay out of foul trouble. Steve Kerr has to emphasize to Draymond, stay out of foul trouble. And for the Warriors, another key for them is to try to not get stagnant. Let's say Klay is not hitting in shots, which he's shown sometimes this season. Who will be that other guy to help Stephen Curry on the offense? Could it be Jonathan Kuminga, who we've seen play decent all season? But he has a tough matchup against Keegan Murray, but can he beat that matchup? Could it be Andrew Wiggins? Because as I've discussed, Andrew Wiggins was a huge part in the Golden State Warriors 2022 title. He's dealt with personal issues, but we know what Wiggins is capable of. Could it be a Moses Moody giving score production? Could it be even a Chris Paul hitting some mid-range jumpers for the Warriors? It has to be somebody else other than Steph. And if the offense gets stagnant, somebody else has to step up other than Steph and Curry. So the Warriors are going to have to figure this out. That is a key for them. If the offense is stagnant, who's the second option? And Draymond must not get into foul trouble. So those are my keys for the game. This is going to be a great matchup. As I said, these two teams have been going at it for the past 2 years, and it's been absolutely exciting to watch. The game's in Sacramento, and the Kings are probably going to be favorites in this game. And considering how the Warriors have played this season, the Kings probably should win this game. But you know what? I just can't pick against the man in a one game, win or go home elimination game. He did it last season in Sacramento, and I think he's going to do it again. I'm going to take the Warriors in this one to upset the Sacramento Kings and finish the Sacramento Kings season as a disappointing lottery team considering where they were last season. I know the Kings should probably win, and obviously definitely not be surprised that the Kings won this by a lot of points. They could win by 20, and I wouldn't be surprised. But in a close game, if this game's close and this game's back and forth, you have to go with the best player on the court. And the best player by far on that court is Wardell Stephen Curry. So you've got to take the Golden State Warriors in this one, and that is what I'm doing. So I got the Warriors moving on there, but let's move on to the other playing game, which is the 8-7 playing game, which is the Lakers and Pelicans, a rematch from the season finale, which was today as I'm filming this, or while you watch this yesterday. But this is a game where the winner will get the 7 seed, and the winner will have the privilege, the exciting privilege of playing the number 2 seed and defending NBA champions, the Denver Nuggets. So do you want to win this game? Probably to conceal yourself in the playoffs, but that is a tough draw considering that the Thunder, the inexperienced Thunder, are the number 1 seed, and this Denver team that won the title and has proven that they can dominate in the playoffs is the 2 seed. So whoever wins that game will get the privilege of that matchup. And the winner and the Lakers this season have won 3 out of 4 games against this New Orleans Pelicans team. They won on December 7th. They won 133-89 in dominant fashion. On December 31st, New Year's Eve, the Pelicans won 129-109 in New Orleans. On February the 9th, the Lakers won 139-122 in Los Angeles. And yesterday, April 14th, the Los Angeles Lakers beat the Pelicans in New Orleans 124-108. And this is where the game will be played. And I'm assuming that the Lakers are probably going to stay in New Orleans, obviously. Why would you go back and prepare for this game? Of course, let's start with the higher seed, the New Orleans Pelicans. The Pelicans, it's been a season of inconsistency for them, yet somehow their record is still 49-33. We've seen a lot of inconsistencies. We've seen the highest of highs for this Pelicans teams. We've seen major winning streaks, but we've also seen times this season where the Pelicans have gotten stagnant. The Pelicans lost their offensive group. The Pelicans had major losing streaks. So it's really been an up and down season. They are 49-33, so you got to give them credit for that. But it hasn't been the prettiest season necessarily. And of course, for this season, Zion has been his healthiest ever since he got drafted. He averaged 23 points per game for the Pelicans and 6 rebounds per game. Brandon Ingram and CJ McCollum also had solid seasons for the Pelicans, both averaging 20 points per game. Both of them were a little bit in and out of the lineups. They missed, I think, both like around 15 games this season, but still, when they were on the court, they were solid for the Pelicans. And Trey Murphy has had a much improved season from last year, averaging 14 points per game here for the New Orleans Pelicans and looking like that 4th guy on this Pelicans roster. So he's had a great season. I know the Pelicans late this season made the adjustment of benching Jonas Valanciunas and starting one Larry Nance Jr. But who knows? But because this matchup has Anthony Davis, of course, a big physical center. Maybe they put Valanciunas starting, but also you could look at it as Zion's going to take that responsibility of guarding AD, which is what he did in today's game as I watched it. But maybe since the Lakers smacked the Pelicans, maybe Willie Green makes that adjustment. Maybe Willie Green starts Jonas Valanciunas. But for the Pelicans, though, a weakness for them is their depth on the roster. Their depth is really quite lacking. Their starters are mostly their dominant players here for the New Orleans Pelicans. I mean, their bench, they've got Jose Alvarado, trying to think. They've got Jonas Valanciunas now on the bench. They've got Dyson Daniels and Najee Marshall on the bench for the New Orleans Pelicans as well. It's been up and down for those guys this season, on the roster this season, and their bench just really hasn't given them the production they need. And the starters, when they've played, had to carry the load for this team. I know Alvarado provides some decent defense. Dyson Daniels and Najee Marshall do as well. But CJ McCollum, Murphy, Herbert Jones, Zion, and Jonas and Larry Nance have provided most of the scoring for the Pelicans this season. And the problem with New Orleans this season is that they give up a lot of three-pointers per game. They give up the second most three-pointers per game, which when you're looking at a team who can shoot the ball, that could be absolutely brutal for the Pelicans, because when they play high shooting teams, they are under 500. When the Pelicans play top 10 shooting teams in the league, they are under 500 because they give up a lot of threes. In this particular game, that doesn't matter. I just wanted to give you that stat. So if the Lakers have a hot shooting night because they get open opportunities, it could potentially be because of this. Plus, and the Pelicans do allow not only the second most attempts, they also allow a lot of makes. They allow 13 and a half made three-pointers on them a game, which is a lot in the league, considering most teams are around 11 and a half to 12. That's an extra 3 to 6 points per game, which especially in a game like this, could be crucial for the New Orleans Pelicans. So that's their problem. Moving on to the Lakers. Of course, we know all the storylines this season. It's been really up and down for the Lakers, criticizing player after player. Yet the Lakers responded. They're getting hot at the right time. And from being in that 9-10 spot most of the season, the Lakers jumped. They got this 8th spot. And now they are in a position where all they have to do is win one game to get in, rather than having to win 2 winner-go-home games. They just got to win 1 out of the next 2 to get into the postseason. So the Lakers put themselves in a good position to end this season. And it's been, as I said, it's been an adventure for the Lakers, but they've really, really put themselves in a good position. They've won 12 out of their last 15. And, of course, LeBron. He's put the 21st season, he's put this team on his back, and he's absolutely carried them to the finish line, from AD's up and down games, Russell being up and down, Austin Reeves sometimes showing up, sometimes not, the other guys who have not really shot the ball that well. It's really been LeBron just carrying this team all season, and you got to give the man credit. Whether he's your GOAT or not, he's not my GOAT, but I still got to give LeBron credit, because what he is doing is absolutely incredible. And of course, I just mentioned D'Angelo Russell. He's had a little bit of an up and down season, but lately D'Angelo Russell has played great for this Lakers team. We thought Austin Reeves would be that number 3 guy this season for the Lakers, but this season we are seeing D'Angelo Russell be that number 3 guy for the Lakers. And this is the best, in my personal opinion, that I've seen D'Angelo Russell play since the 2019 Brooklyn Nets season. So D'Angelo Russell, if he can play the way he's been playing now and not have issues in the playoffs like he did last season, I think the Lakers will be in a decent position, especially if they get a matchup against the OKC Thunder. And the Lakers, their issues this season, it's mostly been the same problem as New Orleans. They lack depth, obviously. Dinwiddie has played terrible ever since they signed him. Gabe Vincent's a good depth piece, and he could be a crucial factor for a team in the postseason, because we saw what he did last year with the Miami Heat, but he's played not so good, and he's been injured all season. You've got Hachimura. He's been pretty much up and down this season. Jackson Hayes up and down this season. This Lakers team does not have a lot of depth. And that is the same problem as New Orleans. Also, they cannot shoot the ball, the Lakers, and they are being outscored from the three-point line by 2.4 makes per game, which, if you're doing that math, they're getting outscored by essentially 7.5 points per game from the three-point line each and every single game. So that is a concern there, especially if a three-point shooting team gets hot and they get stagnant on the offensive side of the ball. Plus, they give up 117.3 points per game, which is a lot of points per game. So again, they've shown this season vulnerabilities, especially their perimeter defense. Vulnerabilities on that side of the ball. Now to the keys of this game for the New Orleans Pelicans. I'm assuming for the Pelicans, what they're going to do is put Herb Jones on LeBron James. Herb Jones, amazing defender, third-year guy out of Alabama. He's absolutely been killing it for the Pelicans on the defensive side of the ball. And they're probably going to put Zion on AD. Maybe they try Valanciunas, as I said, considering how bad they got smacked by the Lakers today. But I'm assuming he's going to choose Zion, but you never know. But that's what I'm going to go with. Those, in my opinion, are favorable. They should be at least favorable matchups for the Pelicans. I think Herb Jones is a great defender, and he can guard LeBron. Obviously, you can't contain LeBron, but Herb Jones is one of the best perimeter defenders in the league, and in my opinion, he should be first-team all-defense. And Zion, I mean, he's shown inconsistencies from the defensive side of the ball, but he can hang with AD when he wants to. He's athletic. He's just as athletic, if not more athletic than Anthony Davis. He's as quick as Anthony Davis. He's as big and as strong as Anthony Davis. He should be able to hold himself against Anthony Davis. Not saying Anthony Davis is probably going to get his buckets and LeBron's probably going to get his too, but maybe an extra stop or two could just make the difference for this team, and those two are good defenders to have. Now, D'Angelo Russell is going to be guarded by probably CJ McCollum, with Trey Murphy getting Austin Reeves and Hachimura getting Larry Nance Jr. That's probably what the matchups are going to be. Now, if you look at this, D'Angelo Russell, in order for the Lakers to win, is probably going to have to outplay CJ McCollum. We know LeBron and AD are probably going to outplay Zion and Brandon Ingram, of course. But if you're this Pelicans team, if you're the Lakers, you are going to need D'Angelo Russell to outplay McCollum, because if McCollum gets it going and D'Angelo starts having his issues, the Pelicans will be in this game, because I think the Pelicans, even though they both have terrible depth, I think the supporting cast around them, I think, is stronger with the Pelicans. When you look at it, Herb Jones and Trey Murphy and Larry Nance and Valanciunas, in my opinion, are better than a Hachimura, a Reeves, and it's Dinwiddie and Gabe Vincent this season. Even though they're both not great supporting casts, I think the better supporting cast is with the Pelicans. So the crucial thing here is, if D'Lo can outplay McCollum, the Lakers will win this basketball game. D'Angelo Russell has to be playing the way he's been playing in order to the Lakers to succeed. That's how the Lakers have been getting up on the standings. That's how they jumped Sacramento for that 8th seed, because D'Angelo Russell has been playing that good for this Los Angeles Lakers. Also, as I just said, obviously the depth is not that great for both of these teams, but a key for this game is who will win those minutes, who will win the bench minutes for these teams, because we know the stars are going to ball out for both teams, as I said repeatedly. Who is going to win the bench scoring? Is it going to be the Lakers? Is somebody going to step up on the bench for the Lakers or the Pelicans? Because that extra 10 points, that extra 12 points can give a team a boost in order to win this game. We know the Pelicans are going to respond, so the Lakers are going to have to play better than most of the games they've played this season, which I believe they will. But the Pelicans are going to play better as well, so it's going to be a great game. And then another question, final question that I have for this game, an intriguing one actually. Who will force the other to be in more foul trouble? Will Zion force AD to get in a little bit of foul trouble? Or vice versa, will AD force Zion to get a little bit of in foul trouble? Or could it be both? Who knows? Because both are aggressive, attacking big men who like to attack the rim and the paint. So whoever wins that matchup, whoever draws the more fouls on the other one, could be a crucial part in whoever wins this game. Of course, it's in New Orleans, so it's going to be a challenge for this Los Angeles Lakers team. But ultimately, in my opinion, the Pelicans have not been a favorable matchup this season when playing against the Lakers. LeBron and AD are playing very, very sensational basketball right now. D'Angelo Russell is playing sensational basketball, and I definitely think he can outplay CJ McCollum, as I said, to one of my keys for this game for the Lakers. So ultimately, I'm probably going to go with LeBron and the Lakers here. I'm going to take another upset in the play-in. 2 road teams winning for the first time in the Western Conference in the play-in history. Of course, we know last year both road teams, Chicago the 10 and Atlanta the 8, won their play-in games. But this will be the first time in the West where 2 road teams win their play-in games. So that's what I think about the Lakers-Pelicans. I think the Pelicans will still, obviously, even if they lose this game, they will still have a chance. Even if the Lakers, same thing with the Lakers, they will still have a chance to make it up and play the winner of the Warriors-Kings. Obviously, that will be a tough one because both of those teams we know can score the ball. But honestly, I think both of these games, Warriors, Kings, Lakers, Pelicans, I think both of them can be absolute thrillers. I'm pretty sure the Lakers and Pelicans is at 7:30 Eastern on TNT on Tuesday, and the Warriors, Kings will be at 10 o'clock Tuesday on TNT as well, Eastern time. So those two will be back-to-back. We'll get the Lakers, Pelicans first. And this should be one exciting play around for the West. Probably 4 teams that, quite frankly, we didn't expect. Maybe the Pelicans we did, but the Lakers, the Kings, and the Warriors, for how we saw them play this season, we most definitely did not expect to see any of them in the play-in games. So it's going to be interesting. It's going to be great. And let's move on to the playoffs and preview some of these playoff matchups. We've got the 3-6 matchup for you, and we've got the 4-5 matchup for you. First, let's start with the 3-6 matchup in the Western Conference, which, again, a rematch of a game that happened in the final game of the regular season, where the lower seed ended up winning. The 6th seed, the Phoenix Suns, ended up beating the 3 seed Minnesota, so they could end up playing in the postseason. I mean, the Timberwolves clearly this season have had a stellar season, way, way above expectations. We never expected the Timberwolves to even be contending for the 1 seed. So the fact that they contended for the 1 seed, had a chance to get the 1 seed to finish the season, and were in position for most of at least the first half of the season with that 1 slot. You've got to give credit to Minnesota. What a season for the Minnesota Timberwolves. But their reward for that, as the 3 seed, they will be facing this 3-headed monster team in the Phoenix Suns. Of course, you got Kevin Durant, Devin Booker, Bradley Beal. Let's start with Minnesota. They played 3 times this season, and the Suns did end up winning all 3 games. They won 133-115 in Phoenix. In the first game on November 15th, they won April 5th, 97-87, also in Phoenix. And on April 14th, yesterday, which I'm filming today, so it's today for me, 125-106 in Minnesota. So Phoenix has pretty much dominated this Minnesota Timberwolves team all season long. So what has been the issue? I don't know. We're going to discuss that a little bit as we preview this series. But first, let's start recapping season. Let's start with the higher seed, of course, as always, the Minnesota Timberwolves. The Timberwolves, as I said, had an incredible season, shocked the entire league. Anthony Edwards took another step up for this basketball team, averaging 26 points per game, 5 assists per game, 5.5 rebounds per game, and 1.5 steals per game. And looking for a little bit to be in that MVP conversation. Probably going to be on the All-NBA second team. Could have, if he played a little bit better at points in the season, probably on the All-NBA first, but All-NBA second. Got it. Still incredible achievement for Anthony Edwards. Gobert, of course, has transformed this team into the number 1 defensive team in the league, and he will easily, and it won't even be close, probably should be unanimous Defensive Player of the Year this season for the Timberwolves, Rudy Gobert. And we thought, as I said this last show, we thought that Rudy Gobert, that trade was going to be the worst trade of all time. As I said, 5 first-round picks plus Walker Kessler, and guess what? It worked out for Minnesota. It paid off. Minnesota is winning basketball games for the first time in a very, very long time. This is probably the best we've seen this Timberwolves team since Kevin Garnett was on this team, and it's just been that long for this Minnesota team seeing this much success. So good for that team. The things that have really stood out to me with Minnesota this year is that they rebound the ball at a very high rate. They force turnovers. They do not allow 3-pointers, and they are just absolutely dominant, feisty, aggressive on the defensive side of the ball. Their defense has been dominant this season. Their offenses look very stagnant at times, and their defenses absolutely carried them through this regular season. Of course, Towns had a great season as well. He had one of his great seasons as well, but of course he got injured at the end of the season. He came back to finish off these last few games. Hopefully he'll be back into shape whenever this playoff. I think this playoff series was announced it will start on Saturday, so hopefully Towns will be ready to go on Saturday for the Minnesota Timberwolves. And then Naz Reid off the bench, another good season for them. Probably the runner-up behind Malik Monk for 6th Man of the Year. Some could make the case that he should be the 6th Man of the Year considering where the Timberwolves are compared to the Sacramento Kings. I'd probably give Naz Reid my 6th Man of the Year, but most people think it's going to be Malik Monk, but Naz Reid has had an incredible season. Nickeil Alexander-Walker has played solid for this Minnesota Timberwolves team. Jaden McDaniels has played incredible for this Minnesota Timberwolves team and will probably be the main defender on Kevin Durant in this series. Now for the Suns. The Suns, obviously, it's been an interesting season for them. Of course, Devin Booker missed 15 games. Bradley Beal missed 30, and the big three ultimately just did not play a lot of games together on the court this season. They really have not found their consistency this season. But we know, of course, what Kevin Durant and what Devin Booker can do in the postseason. We saw how insane Devin Booker's playoff performances were last year in round 1 and round 2 against the Clippers and the Nuggets. And even that Suns team had zero chemistry last year. It was just a mess for them last year with all the moves going on and with the DeAndre Ayton and Monty Williams beef. And yet they still won 2 games against Denver, which is the toughest series that Denver had to face. So it just shows you that the Suns elevate their game, especially Devin Booker. We know what KD can do. KD is a 2-time Finals MVP, a 2-time NBA champion. We know the man can ball in the playoffs, and we know this guy will be the best player on this team consistently. But Devin Booker has shown it as well. Devin Booker has shown that he elevates his game in the playoffs. Of course, we haven't seen Beal in the playoffs in a while. I think since that 2018 Washington-Boston series, the Wizards have pretty much been out of it ever since. Actually, 2021, they were in the playoffs. They got gentlemen swept by Philadelphia in 5. But other than that, I really haven't seen Bradley Beal in the playoffs, so we want to see what he's willing to do in the playoffs this season. Of course, as I said, Durant, great season as usual, 27 points per game. Booker, also 27 points per game. And the thing, of course, that people talk about when they think of the Suns' weaknesses, it's, of course, their depth because they have Booker, Beal, and Durant on these big contracts, so they really had to sign minimum players in free agency. But they do have some scoring boost in Grayson Allen, who's had a solid season coming to them in the 3-team Damian Lillard trade where they gave Ayton to Portland and Grayson Allen from Milwaukee came to Phoenix. He's been a nice addition for them. Royce O'Neal, the Phoenix Suns, got at the trade deadline in a trade with Brooklyn. He's been a solid defender for them and could be crucial in a playoff series when guarding one of the best players. So for this Phoenix team, it's really been this up and down kind of a season for them. But I think ultimately when this team is playing at their best and this team is healthy and ready to go for the playoffs, this team is a threat to win the Western Conference. So is Minnesota. What we've seen from Minnesota is also a threat. But most people have probably disregarded Phoenix this season. But they got out of the play-in tournament. They got the Pelicans lost. They got the win. They're out of the play-in tournament. They have an opportunity here to win a good 7-game series against a great basketball team. And if they do that, they're going to prove to the rest of the league that they are still in contention to win the Western Conference. Now let's preview this series. Now let's preview the keys for the series. Minnesota, who ranks 18th in offense. The question is for them, are you going to outscore the Phoenix Suns on offense? We know you have a good defense, but Phoenix has had your number this year on the offensive side of the ball. They've scored 133 on you. I mean, you have one good game where they scored 97 on you, but now this game, Phoenix got back at you and they scored 125. So Minnesota has had struggles on the defensive side of the ball against the Phoenix Suns this season. So if that's to be the case in this playoff series, can Minnesota outscore Phoenix? It's a tough question to answer because we know what Anthony Edwards can do. We've seen Towns score at a consistent level, but who else? You've got Rudy Gobert. I mean, he's not a great offensive threat. I mean, Mike Conley's getting up there, mostly like a 10 to 12 point per game scorer now. Jalen McDaniels, not more of a defender. There's just Naz Reid is there too as well, but maybe Naz Reid is your third best offensive guy. But other than that, Minnesota does not really have a lot of offensive threats in the ball. So if Minnesota gives up a lot of points to this Phoenix Suns team, they might be in a heap of trouble in this playoff series because we've seen the Suns, when they get their points, dominate the Minnesota Timberwolves this year because it's tough to outscore that Phoenix Suns team. So it will be crucial for Minnesota to do what they do best and be the number one defense and win the series off defense. Because if it's high-scoring games, I'm going to assume Phoenix is going to win. If it's a low-scoring affair, Minnesota will probably have the advantage and the edge in the series. So can Minnesota do it? It'll be tough. But I think ultimately players are going to have to step up for that team, considering how good Phoenix has been this season against Minnesota and what we know Phoenix's potential is. Also, how are you going to stop three lethal scorers if you're Minnesota? You've got Beal, Booker, and Durant. I'm assuming that Jalen McDaniels is going to guard Kevin Durant. I'm assuming Anthony Edwards is going to guard Devin Booker. So Mike Conley's probably going to have to guard Bradley Beal. Mike Conley's a solid defender, but if Bradley Beal can get his points, Bradley Beal will be the key to the Phoenix Suns this season because two great defenders are guarding Kevin Durant and Devin Booker. If Beal can take advantage of that Mike Conley matchup and Beal can average 25 points per game this series, Phoenix will win this series 100% guaranteed. I can promise you that. If he doesn't and he doesn't score and he doesn't really help this Phoenix team considering their depth, I think Minnesota will have the advantage in the series and they will probably win the series. So Bradley Beal needs to take advantage of that matchup because Kevin Durant and Devin Booker are going to be heavily harassed by Jalen McDaniels and Anthony Edwards. So he needs to find a way to win that matchup, Bradley Beal. If you're the Suns, you've got to tell Bradley Beal, you've got to set up play to expose that matchup. You have to set up plays for Bradley Beal if you're Frank Vogel, and I think if it works, the Suns should be in good position to win this series. I also think that Nurkic potentially could cause problems for Gobert down low, especially on the offensive side of the ball. I don't think Nurkic will be as big of a threat on the offensive side of the ball, considering Rudy Gobert's incredible defense. But on the offensive side of the ball, for the little scoring that Gobert provides at 12 points per game, I think Nurkic can cause him some problems. And I think Nurkic could give Gobert some foul trouble, which, especially when you're considering how good and how valuable he is to that team, he cannot get into foul trouble because Rudy Gobert is definitely over Karl-Anthony Towns, been their second most valuable player this season. So a key for Minnesota, Gobert has to stay out of foul trouble against Nurkic. And finally, the last key for this Minnesota Timberwolves team, before we get to the couple of keys we got for the Suns, it's been their key all season long. Can Anthony Edwards be a superstar? Can Anthony Edwards get you 35 points per game in the series? Can Anthony Edwards be consistent every single game? And can he be that superstar? Can he elevate his game in the postseason? And can he be that guy to lead Minnesota to the promised land? Because if not, Minnesota is screwed, because if Anthony Edwards has problems in this postseason, they're done. Nobody else can score as good as he can on that team. Nobody else I can see stepping up. I mean, Karl-Anthony Towns could, but I just don't see it happening. I think because of Kevin Durant on defense, the one thing is Anthony Edwards has to be a superstar for this team. We've seen it, but he has to do it now in the playoffs because he has not won a playoff series in his career, and we have to see it before we call him a superstar. And he's going to have to prove it this playoffs. I know Anthony Edwards has been amazing. I literally just praised him, but he's going to have to prove that he is that guy and he will elevate his game in the playoffs. That is the only way the Timberwolves will win this series. Now, for the Phoenix Suns, this may be a tough series for them considering Vogel may have to play 7 to 8 guys, and the Timberwolves are a tough, hard-nosed team. So the question is, Vogel, are you going to play 9 guys or 7 to 8 guys? Because Minnesota can wear that team down. And I especially trying not to look ahead, but if you got to play a Denver team in the second round and you're in a tough 7-game series against this Minnesota Timberwolves team, you might get wear down. So, but at the same point, when you play more guys, it gives less opportunities for Durant. Their guys are less of scoring threats. So Vogel's going to have to make that decision there. I don't know what the decision is for Frank Vogel and this Phoenix Suns team, but he's going to have to make the right one and think not about just this playoff series, but what is to probably come ahead down the line. And another key for Phoenix is I think if they can draw fouls, I mentioned this earlier with Nurkic drawing fouls on Gobert. They can draw fouls on Gobert, Towns. If Booker can draw fouls on Anthony Edwards, because Booker, Durant, both good at drawing fouls. If they can draw fouls on the big guys attacking the rim or on Anthony Edwards on a jump shot or something, this will be a different series. If Phoenix can slow the game down, cause Minnesota star players to get in the foul line, hit free throws, which they're very good at shooting, Phoenix, one of the best free throw shooting teams in the league, slow the pace, get to their pace, calm it down, take a breath, because this will be a hard-fought physical series for the Suns team. Probably they're something that they probably have not seen in a 7-game stretch this season. So they are going to need every little moment of breath they can. And that just slows the game down, and that just gives not only them a chance to slow the game down, take a breath, but it also gives Minnesota players foul trouble. So if Phoenix can draw fouls, that is the key. Now for my pick. Again, I mean, this series is intriguing because we've got a very highly offensive power team versus a very, very elite, and not just elite, but the best defensive team in the league. Ultimately, I think this will be back and forth series. I think the series will probably be 2-2 after 4, going into a crucial game 5, most likely. But in this series, I've got to take Kevin Durant and Devin Booker from what I've seen from them in the playoffs. I know Minnesota's had a great and amazing season, and they should be incredibly proud of what they've done this season. But Minnesota does not have the same playoff experience as those two, and I trust those two more than Anthony Edwards and Karl-Anthony Towns. And for those reasons, I am going to take Phoenix to move on to the second round, probably in 6, maybe 7, but I'm going to probably say 6. But it should be a great series, and whatever happens, I think both teams should be incredibly proud of what they've done this season. I know Phoenix championship or bust, but Phoenix was in a big hole this season, and they really recovered. This is going to be a classic one, and honestly, whoever dictates the pace, if it's a slower game, it'll be Minnesota. If it's a faster-paced game, it'll probably be Phoenix controlling the series. Very interesting to see who wins that. Phoenix is dominated. Minnesota will probably be, and Phoenix will probably be even favorites. They'll probably be both tied. Like looking at the Vegas sportsbook, I don't really know who they'll pick as favorites in the series. I think it'll be about even, but I'm going to lean toward the players who I trust more, as I said, and I'm going to take Kevin Durant and the Phoenix Suns. Now, for our last playoff series of the day, we've got the 5-seed Dallas Mavericks against the 4-seed LA Clippers. This series was set a while back, and we've pretty much anticipated this one for a while. This is the 3rd time they are meeting in 5 seasons. Of course, 2020, the Clippers beat them 4-2 in the bubble. Luka hit that crazy buzzer beater to tie it in game 4. 2-2, then the Clippers won the last 2 in the bubble. And in 2020, that crazy series where Dallas won all 3 games in LA for the first 3 games in LA, and the Clippers won all 3 games in Dallas, and that game 7, the Clippers finally got a win at home, and they won that. They ended up going to the conference finals that year, losing to Phoenix in 6. But as you can clearly see, this is probably going to be a great one. The Clippers will have home court in the series. They are the 4 seed, and this season the Clippers have beaten the Mavs 2 out of 3 times in the regular season. The Mavs beat them on November the 10th, 144-126 in Dallas. That was an in-season tournament game. On November the 25th, the Clippers beat them 107-88 in Los Angeles, and then December 20th, the Clippers won 120-111 in Dallas. Let's start with the Los Angeles Clippers. It's been a real interesting season for the Clippers. Obviously, at the beginning of the season, we know they made that James Harden trade, giving up Marcus Morris, Robert Covington, along with and Batum to Philadelphia for James Harden. But when they acquired James Harden, it wasn't really looking good for this Clippers team. They were on a 5-game losing streak. We were losing hope for this Clippers team, and it looked like Harden was just not that guy anymore, and it's just been struggling for the past few years, and it's just really taken a toll. But then all of a sudden, from December 2nd to February the 5th, The Los Angeles Clippers won 26 out of 31 games. They went 26-5 in essentially a 2-month span. Incredible. Like, best record in that span. They really jumped themselves up in the standings, and they were in that conversation to get the 1 seed. But ever since then, Kawhi Leonard's been in and out of the lineup, and they've been 17-15. Even though Kawhi's been in and out of the lineup, this is the healthiest he's probably been since 2020. And he's had a decent season for the Clippers, averaging 24 points per game. He has a knee issue right now, but maybe he'll be out for game 1 of the series. But I probably would, if I had to guess, say Kawhi would be in the lineup for game 1 in that playoff series. As I said, Harden, it's really been up and down for him with the Clippers. He played really, really good in that 2-month stretch that I just mentioned, but lately he's only averaged 13 points per game in this month of April. And it's just been a real interesting season for the Clippers. Westbrook has been solid off the bench. Norman Powell looks like a 6th man of the year candidate for the Los Angeles Clippers, probably in that top 3 with Naz Reid and Malik Monk. Also, Bones Highland has been playing good of late for the Los Angeles Clippers team. And Zubac has been pretty solid. He's gotten a lot of rebounds for this team, and he's been giving the Clippers crucial second chance opportunities. Tice hasn't been that bad off the bench for them, and Amir Coffey has played solid as well. So this Clippers team, solid season for them, especially the 2-month stretch. They've been falling off a little bit, but part of that is due to Kawhi Leonard being injured, because we know how good the Claw is on both sides of the ball. But the Clippers did get the 4 seed, and they now have the opportunity to win their first playoff series. But let's move on to Dallas. Dallas, really inconsistent start to the season, looking like they would be in the play-in race and probably get a play-in game. But to finish this season, the Dallas Mavericks have won 16 out of their last 18 games with Luka and Kyrie on the floor. During the stretch for Dallas, their defense has dramatically improved. Obviously, we know with Luka and Kyrie on the court, that defense is not going to be that great. But in this winning streak, in this winning stretch, that defense has improved. And when you've got that Dallas offense with Luka and Kyrie, we know what those two can do with an incredible defense. That team is scary good. I mean, they looked absolutely unstoppable. I watched them the other day against Miami. Lethal. They could not miss a single shot. And on defense, they were getting stops and they were hitting more shots, and they were absolutely dominating the game against a solid opponent. And if they can do that, play great defense like they've done in this stretch, I promise you they will win this series. If Dallas does that, there is no way the Clippers will beat them. Quite frankly, the only team that could beat them like that is probably the Denver Nuggets, and they might not even beat them the way Dallas has been playing in the last 18 games. Of course, the Dallas Mavericks made some trades at the trade deadline. They got Daniel Gafford from Washington, and they got PJ Washington from Charlotte in exchange for Seth Curry, Grant Williams, some others. And those two have been pretty solid for Dallas, especially on the defensive side of the ball, helping the Mavericks on the defensive side of the ball this season. And, of course, Tim Hardaway Jr. has been solid for Dallas off the bench. And Maxi Kleber has been a solid defender. Derek Lively, when he was healthy, which was most of the time, I think he's out now due to personal reasons. But I think he should be back for the start of the playoffs. He was very solid on the defensive side of the ball, and he really looked like he can make an impact for this Dallas team this season, and he probably will in the playoffs. We'll see. And, of course, Josh Green, as I said. Dante Exum. I forgot about Dante Exum. Out of the league for 2 years. Played for Utah. Out of the league for 2 years. Resurgence. Absolute resurgence. Dante Exum came out of nowhere for this Dallas team and all of a sudden started performing like one of the best 6-man off the bench for this Dallas Mavericks team. He averaged 8 points per game this season, but when he was playing at his best, he was a 15-point per game scorer. So for him this season, Dante Exum, shout out to him. He's had a complete resurgence. So good for Dante Exum, and he will be a crucial part for Dallas in this playoff series. Now, let's talk about the matchup. For this matchup, I'm assuming the Clippers will put Kawhi Leonard on Luka Doncic, who Kawhi is one of the best, if not the best defender in the league. Very big wingspan, can really cover anybody, honestly, in the league. Just an incredible defender. Even though a lot of people praise his defense, I still think people undervalue how good of a defender this guy is for this Los Angeles Clippers team. And keys to this game, the series, because this is a playoff matchup. Key for the series is for the Clippers to not force turnovers, because when Dallas gets the ball off turnovers, they are absolutely lethal. When you push the ball ahead to Luka, when you push the ball ahead to Kyrie Irving, this Dallas team is absolutely lethal off turnovers. They shoot ballistic percentages off turnovers. They convert on the fast break every single time. So if you get this team easy buckets, considering how good they are in offense already, you may be in for a load of trouble. So the Clippers, they cannot turn the ball over. They've had some problems with that this season. So the Clippers must take care of the ball and must value every possession, especially not even because of the fast break points, because this Mavericks team is just so good on offense, and they're going to need to outscore Dallas, and they're going to need every good shot they can get. So they really need to take care of the ball and value every single possession like it is their last. And another key for the Clippers is let the others beat you. Let Josh Green get hot. Let PJ Washington get hot from three. Let Maxi Kleber have a good game. Let Tim Hardaway beat you, or Dante Exum, because we know what Luka and Kyrie can do. They are just so good on the offensive side of the ball, and there's nothing, I repeat, nothing you can do to stop that team. So if you're the Clippers, you're going to have to let the others beat you. Kawhi needs to find a way to stop Luka. Whoever's guarding Kyrie, I don't even know who's going to guard Kyrie. Maybe Paul George, maybe Harden. You're going to have to find ways to stop them. You're going to have to let the others beat you. Because I think if you let the others beat you, because of your star power with Kawhi, with Paul George, with Harden, we know all three of them can score. Westbrook off the bench can score. Powell off the bench can score. Zubac can get you a couple of buckets. We know this team can score. The Clippers have the star power to score. So if they can just stop Luka and Kyrie and let the others beat them, if the others beat you and the others get hot, you have to live with it when you're playing against this Dallas team. Because for how hot Luka Doncic is, for how hot Kyrie Irving is, you have to stop them. Because if they beat you, the media, the press, not even ever, like, that is the reason why you're going to lose, because they beat you. Stopping the others is not important, because it's easier to stop the others than to stop Luka and Kyrie. The others could potentially miss some open shots. The others could potentially make a bad mistake. You have to stop the two guys who you know can carry this team, this Dallas team, to a playoff victory, and that is Luka Doncic and that is Kyrie Irving. And now the keys for Dallas in this playoff series, obviously their concern is their perimeter defense. We love Luka and Kyrie on the offensive side of the ball, but of course they are not great perimeter defenders. Gafford has proved he's been a solid interior defender, great guy that they acquired at the trade deadline. But the key is Luka and Kyrie must step up to the perimeter. They must stop James Harden and Paul George on the perimeter. They must stop Norman Powell from getting hot. They must stop Westbrook from driving, attacking, and kicking. Because if the Clippers easily run their offense, they can easily match the scoring of Dallas. If the Clippers can beat that first line of defense for Dallas, they can easily beat that defense, and they have the shooters and they have the guys to score from all three levels on the court. And if the Clippers match with Dallas on the offensive side of the ball, the Clippers will win, because the Clippers by far, even though I know how good Dallas has been playing on the defensive side of the ball, the Clippers by far will win the series. That will be if the Clippers outscore Dallas and play that much better offense than the Mavericks, the Clippers will easily win the series. Same goes for the Clippers. If the Clippers just don't score and the Mavericks absolutely dominate them, and the Clippers suck on the defensive side of the ball, the Clippers are going to lose the series in 5. So it goes for both ways. But if the Mavericks don't outplay and get better shots than the Clippers on the offensive side of the ball, and it's clearly a Clippers domination on offense all over, they will easily win this series. So you're gonna have to play some perimeter defense, because we know when the Clippers can get hot from the three-point line, they can shoot the ball just as good as Dallas, if not better. Next, of course, you're going to need the other guys to step up. We've said the Clippers are probably going to key in on Luka and Kyrie, so somebody else is going to have to step up. Can PJ Washington give you good efficiency? Can Exum have one of those huge scoring splash games or two off the bench? Can Tim Hardaway Jr. get hot? Can Maxi Kleba give you something down low? Each of those guys are going to have some big games for Dallas. There's going to have to be a third guy for Dallas each and every single game if they want a chance at winning this, because if it's just those two scoring, averaging like 75 points per game, and the others are not really doing anything, the Clippers are going to win the series. Those two guys cannot carry the load. Dallas, they need help on the offensive side of the ball. They are going to have, because I promise, Luka and Kyrie will set them up. Luka and Kyrie will probably set them up. But those guys are going to have to hit the shots and be efficient on the offensive side of the ball. And at least one of the role players is going to have to step up to be that third guy each and every single game in order for Dallas to win the series. Finally, for both teams, a key for both teams, who gives their stars the extra opportunities on the glass? We know Gafford and Ivica Zubac, great offensive rebounders. You can put Derek Lively in there and Daniel Tyson as well in this discussion. Who will give their stars more opportunities? Because obviously more shots to those guys who we know on both teams who can score the ball efficiently will lead to more buckets and probably 2 wins. So whoever wins the offensive glass will most likely win the series. And Zubac and Gafford are going to be battling down. And even though those guys may not be super high guys in the scoreboard, those guys for rebounding, both for defense, preventing the extra opportunities and trying to steal some extra opportunities from each other. That's going to be an exciting matchup down low. So that's my take on all the Western Conference play-in and playoff series. We know we've got the play-in in the West Tuesday, as I said, and we've got the Eastern Conference play-in and playoff series preview coming up next episode. But for now, we're going to sign out. Thank you so much for watching this episode. Remember, please follow me on YouTube and Spotify. Subscribe, leave a like. It'll mean a lot to me. And that's all my shots for the week. Tell me how you would have taken your shots on these takes. Thank you so much, guys, and I will see you Wednesday for the Eastern Conference preview.